My honor to introduce Ms. Pat Pitney, President of the University of Alaska. Please join me in welcoming President Pitney.
That light is bright. Good afternoon, and again, welcome to our great state of Alaska. We sincerely appreciate the attendance of our international dignitaries, and I know from talking to some of you, this is your first time here, and I hope this is the first of many visits to our great state. We always say Alaska is like a small town. Everyone knows each other. The Arctic is also one big small town. We know each other, or we know someone who can connect us on the first try. We are interconnected because we have common interests and realize our successes and prosperity are increasingly interdependent. Speaking of our small town, I wanted to take a brief moment to appreciate the contribution and leadership of Representative Don Young, a true advocate for Alaska and the Arctic. I also want to send my condolences to the family of Arlis Sturgielewski, an Alaska leader with passion and caring. These are just a couple of the important leaders and mentors who have taught us and shown us the impact of caring and passionate leadership for this great state. The conference here had three goals: raise awareness, engage challenges, and develop solutions. Let's do all three. Are you aware, over the last 100 years, the University of Alaska has built a tremendous foundation in Arctic research and education? That foundation is our springboard for the next 100 years. The University of Alaska system, with our three universities, has a leading role in the global Arctic. I want to recognize each of our universities and ask individuals associated with each, past and present, to please stand when I do. University of Alaska Fairbanks is our system's research university with 100 years of Arctic observation and research. Please stand. And if you're a graduate from University of Alaska Fairbanks, also please stand. UAA is our comprehensive university. It provides expertise in Arctic policy, health research, and is growing in Arctic engineering. Please stand. And University of Alaska Southeast, a regional university with its focus on its unique location among the glaciers and on the ocean, and with the people, the Tlingit and Haida people of its region. Please stand. I also want to recognize the national leaders, Arctic leaders here today, who are former UA leaders. Specifically, Mike Sprague with the Wilson Center and most recently with the U.S. Arctic Research Commission. Mark Myers, Commissioner with the Arctic Research Commission. Larry Hinsman, Dr. Larry Hinsman with the Assistant Director for the Polar Sciences in the Office of Science and Technology Policy at the White House. And Major General Church Key, Director of the Ted Stevens Center for Arctic Strategy Studies, and also former UAA Chancellor and Lieutenant Governor, and a personal mentor of mine, Fran Almer, who served as Arctic advisor to the former Secretary of State John Kerry, and now is at Harvard in the Arctic Initiative area. So thank you all for your leadership and movement. Collectively, the university system is engaging in the Arctic Challenge. Our universities are dedicated to educating future Arctic leaders. We are embarking on a bold and new Arctic initiative throughout the University of Alaska system, a strategy that will guide our future investments and actions to position Alaskans as national and global Arctic influencers and engage global influencers to understand the U.S. and Alaska Arctic. Our initiative will solidify Alaska as a preeminent source for climate change, Arctic adaptation, sustainability research. And did you know that UAF's Arctic research is the most cited university in all of the US and the second most cited in all of the world on Arctic science? A quick tangent here. On behalf of UAF, I want to thank the Norwegian ambassador. Norway provides the prestigious MON Award, and it's a prize for excellence in Arctic research. This past fall, they recognized Dr. John Walsh, a UAF research scientist with the International Arctic Research Center, the first American to receive this honor. Thank you. Our Arctic initiative will also strengthen our policy, leadership, and Arctic-related business development. So stretching beyond research into the decision-making and the business and the economic development for not only our state, but the global Arctic. Our initiative will provide successive cohorts of students and early career professionals with the education and research experience, and most importantly, the access to the global Arctic network like we have here. Access to this network and the network in all of our Arctic neighbors is absolutely essential to developing the next generation of Arctic leaders. One of our strategies for this is leveraging our partnership with the University of the Arctic. The University of the Arctic is a consortium of over 200 North Arctic universities and research institutes that have exchanges and collaborations and shared research projects. University of Alaska system has been participating in that network for years, and this initiative is going to strengthen that network. Our multi-pronged approach will also grow our network within the state with business, tribal, Alaska Native corporations, state agencies, and university experts to develop solutions unique to Alaska, but shared across the Arctic North. We plan to launch this initiative in the coming months. It will emphasize the importance of Indigenous leadership in participatory research and communicate the importance of Arctic policy for Alaska's future success and Alaska's importance in the nation and global Arctic policy decisions. And all of you understand the complication of Arctic decisions. I appreciated Emily's discussions about her work in policy. And I want to shout out to the young lady who was in the last breakout panel on climate change and adaptation. She says she studies at the university, but she's frustrated with the pace of change and the understanding of the general public about the pace of change. Yes, the pace of change is long, but we need you to stay with us. We need you to be that voice. Our youth is so important. We are committed to this valuable conference as well. We celebrate the Arctic Encounter for relocating to Alaska. And congratulations, Rachel Callender, and your team for that decision and for the years of success of organizing this event. We look forward to working with you for years into the future. Important to the Arctic is our people. And more, our work is done in collaboration with Alaska Natives and the indigenous knowledge that comes with a strong collaboration. This is so important to community-based research and our overall work in the Arctic. Alaska's indigenous peoples are integral to Alaska's success. They are the original Arctic innovators. And integration of indigenous knowledge greatly improves our research and economic development opportunities. Additionally, our Alaska Native corporations are some of the biggest and best businesses in our state. I want to acknowledge and share my deep admiration for UAA faculty member Darlee Sambo-Daro, International Chair of the Inupiat Circumpolar Council. She was recently honored with the 2022 International Arctic Science Committee's Medal for Facilitating Collaborative and Interdisciplinary Research. She was recognized for her outstanding achievements in advocating for the rights of Indigenous peoples, service to Arctic communities, and her influence as a legal scholar. I also want to recognize Dr. Pearl Brower, who has joined the university and is leading our Alaska Native Success Initiative. Our universities across Alaska, faculty, staff, and students will be fully representative of the diversity of our great state. So thank you, Pearl. Another area was developing solutions for the Arctic. That means engaging at every level. It means engaging from international diplomacy to personal health. Our universities stand ready, and as Rachel said at the very beginning of this conference, to lean into collaboratively building the shared strategic and scientific knowledge necessary, whether it's in support of the National Security Council and its development of the very important national strategy for Arctic, or for addressing the Arctic 7 Cs of climate change, commodities, commerce, connectivity, communities, cooperation, and competition. All of these, however, are completely dependent on what I'm going to term the big E, education. That's where we land. The University of Alaska system stands ready to support Alaska, the nation, and the global Arctic in educating our future leaders. With that, I thank you for attending and thank you for your time. Now I have the pleasure, is the time right, Emily? I have the pleasure of introducing today's panel, highlighting our interconnected Arctic. Today's panel addresses the importance of the ongoing Arctic diplomacy with two of the region's most notable diplomats. Ambassador Bergdís, I practiced this just a minute ago, Ellertsdóttir, who is the ambassador of Iceland to the United States. Please join me. And Ambassador Anniken Krutnes, the ambassador of the Royal Norwegian Embassy to the United States. Today's panel will be moderated by Miss Libby Casey, a journalist from the Washington Post, but more importantly, a Fairbanks fan. Libby, I thought she was born and raised in Fairbanks, but She advised me, she was one of those 20-something backpackers who just couldn't leave Alaska. So Libby got her start in Alaska with our public radio station at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, and we will always call her our own. So welcome, Libby.
It's wonderful. Let me see. Yep, red light. It is wonderful to be back in Alaska. I covered Alaska for a long time as a reporter, both here and in Washington, D.C., and it's wonderful that we've taken the D.C. component up north. So welcome, ambassadors. We heard on this stage yesterday's conversation about what many people have been calling the elephant in the room, Russia. And we heard from the ambassadors from Denmark and from Finland about how that is affecting the Arctic Council and any future cooperation. So I wanted to give the two of you a chance to talk about that. My colleagues at the Washington Post, the latest headline is at least 50 killed in Ukraine in an airstrike at a train station. My colleagues were there in the aftermath and witnessing the devastation and the horror. So I'd like to start with you, Ambassador Krutnes, to talk about what the Arctic Council does now with Russia.
Well, thank you, Libby. Thank you for that question. And I will try and answer it, but I must first say that I'm so happy to be here. It's my first time at the Arctic Encounter. It's my fourth time in Alaska. If I were a backpacker, I actually wish I were a backpacker so I could just stay here.
Which is what I did.
Exactly. And next time I will bring my skis and I will join those who are up to see the sunset at 6 in the morning or 7 and up to a top and then ski down again. I'll come back and do that. So Russia's war in Ukraine is horrendous. We haven't seen anything like it in Europe since the Second World War, and we're all shocked, and devastated, and horrified by the actions of Russia in Ukraine. Your question was, what is the Arctic Council doing? Well, the Arctic Council is doing nothing, I think is the answer. The Arctic Council has been, as was said yesterday, the organization for cooperation in the Arctic for more than 25 years. We've always said that the Arctic is a model region. The Arctic is stable, it's predictable, and it is characterized by respect for international law, by international cooperation, and by solid management of resources. And it's too early to say what Russia's war in Ukraine will mean for the Arctic. But right now it means that the Arctic Council has paused the activities. So there are no activities going on in the Arctic Council for the time being. And then I know that the countries minus Russia will come together and discuss how they will take the Arctic Council forward. But just now, they have paused the activities.
May I push you on that? Does a timeline need to be set on this? Does a bar need to be set on what Russia must do? Or there's just such concern that a pause could be indefinite. So how did the other 7 countries come together in some capacity?
Well, I think cooperation with Russia will be very, very difficult and not foreseen in a long time to come. I don't see us cooperating with Putin's Russia in the Arctic or anywhere else, but I still think that the rest of us need to continue our Arctic cooperation. We have common challenges, such as climate, and we do need to continue that cooperation. And I also think that it's important. I mean, what worries me if the pause of the Arctic Council and other region organizations such as the Barents Council, if it continues too long, I'm afraid we will see a discussion of and decision-making of Arctic issues in other organizations, other places, and that is not in our interest. It is in our interest that it continues to be between the Arctic partners.
Ambassador Ellertsdóttir, to you about should there be a time frame put on some decision or some movement going forward? And also if you'd like to say anything about being here in Alaska.
Thank you so much, Libby. I mean, I can just echo what Anniken has been saying. First of all, I'm so happy to be here. I envy Anniken. She's been here 4 times. This is my first and hopefully not last. And I've been really impressed by this conference, by the Arctic Encounter. A shout out to you, Rachel, and all your good helpers. I'm just looking forward to the rest of this day. And I've met already so many interesting people. But on Russia and on the Arctic Council, all of this has shattered our world, our views, our kind of our future vision, so to speak, our world order. So I can't see us shaking hands with Putin anytime soon, if ever. So we cannot, as surprising as this all was, and I know there are of course experts who were maybe less surprised than we were, but the unthinkable happened. And I cannot see that there is a timeline. But I can fully agree with Anniken saying that we cannot put climate change on the back burner. So we need to find ways to continue the work without Russia. And as has been said here, we don't know how long this will be and what will be the world after this. But so I can't really, and I don't think anyone in this room can give any timeline.
You said yesterday in a panel that this is a crisis for the Arctic. To have Russia removed from this conversation means that there's so much of a pause on vital research that many of you here in the room do. How do those bridges get built, and how do you work around the Russia problem?
There are still bridges. Mm-hmm. People are still cooperating, just without Russia. The crisis is, of course, that half of the Arctic is Russia. But as I said, we cannot. We need to continue our work, and I fully agree with Anniken when she says we need to make sure that the work does not, or the cooperation between the Arctic states -1, does not find other venues than the Arctic Council.
What does Norway's chairmanship of the Arctic Council look like next year?
Well, we are scheduled to take over the chairmanship in May 2023. We will focus on climate, on people, and on the possibilities for people to live in the Arctic. That's important to us. 10% of Norway's population live north of the Arctic Circle. The blue economy. So we have plenty of plans. And we are ready to take over the chairmanship, the leadership of the Arctic Council. We will have to amend it and see how the situation develops and how we will do that. And again, it's important that all of the Arctic countries, minus Russia, decide on how they want to see this work go forward.
Tell us about what Iceland is doing on the climate change front. How do you hope to become a model? How are you thinking about your small but very beautiful nation?
Thank you so much. Climate change or the climate crisis, as the government calls it, is the top priority of the government. And we are doing our shares. We are part of the Paris Agreement, and we actually think that is, we need to be firm on the commitments made by everyone there. And we were, of course, very happy to see the United States re-engage with the Paris Agreement. We have, like all other countries, made commitments for, being carbon neutral by 2040, I think. They're constantly changing the years. They're getting more and more ambitious, and I hope that will be the case. And there are, the government has very detailed plans, which, on how to tackle the climate change. We are blessed in Iceland in that way that we have green energy, we have geothermal and hydro, which provides us with all the electricity and heating of houses that we need. What we use, the fossil fuels are for transport, and we are looking into ways of transitioning that in a different way, or, making use of a lot of very useful innovation from Norway in that matter when it comes to shipping. And so yes, we are trying to do our share.
Ambassador Krutnes, how does your nation view marrying the ambitious climate change goals that are being set with oil and gas development? Because it seems like there was a bit of a divorce there, to carry the metaphor forward, about, well, who is responsible for climate change? Is it the producers of the energy, or is it the consumers, the vast consumers of the energy? You are a major producer, the second largest producer in Europe, second to Russia. So how do you put those two together?
Well, thank you for that question. It's one I get often. So Norway also has ambitious climate goals, and just like you, the numbers change all the time. I think we will be carbon neutral by 2030, and we cut emissions by 55% by 2040. Those numbers. And of course, we are trying to do our production of oil and gas with as little carbon footprint as possible. We are actually electrifying some of the production facilities, and our electricity is hydro. So we're 95% hydroelectric. So your question is a good one. Is it we who produce it, or is it those in Europe who consume it? And I think what the world sees is that Europe is dependent on Norwegian gas. They receive 40% from Russia, 25% from us. And right now they don't want us to stop our gas production. And I think in the short run, what we can do is to continue to be a predictable, a stable producer of gas for Europe. But in the longer run, we have to switch to renewables. And we have to work on that now, and we do that. We are doing offshore wind power, we are into hydrogen, so we are looking into the renewables, and we are doing a green shift. But for the next decades, I think we still need fossils in the energy mix. And of the fossils, gas is probably the least bad.
What's the discussion like in your country right now about what, if anything, particular should be done with proceeds from any additional sales that would be happening as the Russia supply is clamped? I
don't think we have any additional sales. I mean,
profits.
No, it's a commodity. Commodity prices go up and down. They always done that for some reasons or for other reasons. So no, we put it in the fund as we've always done. Yeah.
What is the feeling of security right now? I mean, this panel is about diplomacy and lessons from diplomacy. What is the feeling right now of security in your countries with what's happening globally, in the Arctic as well as, of course, with Russia right there, literally on your border? Ambassador Ellertsdóttir?
Well, I mean, we do not border Russia or any other country for that matter, which provides a certain security, you could say. But I mean, we are a member of NATO, and what happens in Europe has implications for us and our security. So even if we are, somewhere far in the North Atlantic, it does have implications, and we do worry, and we do want to do our shares when it comes to the security of Europe. And what we are seeing now, the kind of the great shifts, we're not only seeing it. We can see, for example, a lot more cooperation and coordination when it comes to security and defense in the Nordic countries. We are cooperating much more closely also with UK, with Canada. So, I mean, it has really intensified cooperation, which was already there, but we have really stepped up, I would say. And even if our share and our contribution is nothing compared to the others, but this is, I mean, we are a member of NATO, and what happens in NATO has implications and worries us. So, that would be my answer to that.
And you do share a literal border, a small border, but a very vital one in terms of security. We're talking less than 200 kilometers, but one that is strategically very important.
Yes, we do share a border with Russia. We used to say that we are NATO's ears and eyes in the north. We are the border with Russia in the north. And we've been a front runner for advocating more deterrence, more defense in the northern part of NATO over years. And we see now that we're grateful we did that. We are increasing our military budget. We're increasing our capabilities. We've been doing that for a while. We bought 52 F-35s. It ruined the budget, but that's where the oil money goes. It goes to the F-35. They go to Texas. Don't psych me on that. But we are stepping up, of course. We have the F-35s, we have the maritime surveillance aircrafts, the P-8, we will buy new submarines. We are working very closely with allies to have deterrence and defense in North. And I think it's important to continue that like we do in Eastern Europe. It should be tailor-made. It wouldn't be a blueprint of what we do for Eastern Europe. It's different there, but that's what we have to continue. Your question, are we worried? Yes, we are worried. We have a neighbor who is now aggressive, unstable, brutal, violent. Of course, that's scary. We haven't seen a spillover so far, but I don't think you can disconnect the North Atlantic and the Arctic from the situation in Ukraine.
Are there areas where cooperation with Russia is still essential at this moment, whether it's potential spill response or rescue or fisheries, anything?
Well, I think essential is the hotline between our command and the Russian Northern Fleet. We need to avoid misunderstandings, incidents based on just misunderstanding. We need to be able to de-escalate incidents. Apart from that, very, very, very little. Everything is put on ice. Search and rescue, we would have a cooperation if there's essential. But apart from that, no.
What are your concerns about fisheries management and Russia's ability to essentially go rogue in addition to claiming additional waters or breaching any sort of agreements that have been respected or understood to be part of this, peaceful, elevated part of the North?
When it comes to fishery management, we have managed for more than 70 years the common cod stock in the Barents Sea. It's been very successful, and we do it together. And I think actually the Russians have their own interest in continuing to manage that stock responsibly. So even if they don't want to cooperate, I guess for 80 years they have managed the stocks responsible. So I would think they would continue to do so. That's at least my hope.
No, I can just echo what Anniken said. We do hope, but as I was saying earlier, we're sort of on very thin ice now, I feel, when it comes to Russia. We don't know exactly. The way they have this brutal war in Ukraine, they're not respecting any international law. So, why would they hesitate to disregard international law elsewhere? And I think that is the way we have no clue what's waiting there. What is the next step? What are we dealing with? And the whole geopolitics of this issue. What with China? What with? This is. Being very dramatic. It's democracy, freedom, rule of law, human rights versus authoritarianism, brutalism, suppression, and there are other authoritarian leaders in the world. And this is it's very difficult. Fisheries is one issue, but it's just they have. For example, now we saw that they were expelled from the Human Rights Council, rightly so, and there are other fora that you mentioned the Barents Sea Council. There are other fora. They are being expelled or from everything. They are still in the UN convention of the law of the sea. So we'll see. But I think it's as I said, we are on thin ice. We have no clue what the future bears when it comes to Russia.
So when you talk about fisheries management, I see the incentive there for all countries to think forward-looking, including perhaps Russia. But how are you thinking about other urgent diplomatic matters in the North? As we think about everything from passage to underseas territory and claiming it. I mean, what is it like among your countries and other countries in the region as you have these conversations and try to find ways to keep those diplomatic channels open, the conversations going outside of the sort of the regular structure of the Arctic Council?
Well, it's very difficult, and as I said earlier, we based our understanding on the Arctic on the fact that so far all the Arctic countries have respected international law in the Arctic. But when we see how Russia behaves right now, how can we trust that they will continue to respect international law in the Arctic when they so flagrantly violate it in Ukraine? So this is, and I totally agree with my colleague, we don't know where this is going.
How do you keep the conversations going among the other Arctic countries?
I think we're still working on that. I mean,
by being here.
Exactly. I mean, we talk all the time. I mean, even with the Arctic Council, there were bilateral or trilateral or whatever consultations. I mean, we would not have any meetings in the Nordic, the Nordic countries together, or if we meet bilateral with the US or bilateral with Canada. I mean, Arctic. It's always on the agenda. But how will we proceed with the Arctic Council? That is something that we will need to discuss in the future.
What does the Arctic look like in 20 years? There's just such grave concern about loss, but there's also resilience, as we've been hearing about on so many panels this week. What does it look like and feel like in 20 years? Or 25 years? Let's take it how long the Arctic Council has been. Let's look ahead another length of time like that.
Yeah. Well, I would hope it would be a peaceful place, a place where people can, live in their respective areas, where there is economic sustainability for them, where we have sort of at least been able to mitigate some of the climate issues, the warming of the planet. I mean, that's being very optimistic, but hearing the conversations here, it has made me more optimistic than I was before, because as you say, there is so much resilience, there is so much innovation, there is so much so much toughness in us in the North, and I think we will come through stronger than we were before, because the Arctic has always been there, but somehow the Arctic has come so much more in the forefront. We cooperate so much more closely than we did. We share knowledge, we share information, we share best and worst practices. I mean, I think that kind of, and I'm not talking about the Arctic Council now, I'm just talking about us in the Arctic. I think that has given me so much hope for the future of life in the Arctic.
Ambassador Krutnes.
No, I completely agree. I hope it will be a peaceful region, a vibrant region where people live. Young people want to go there, and a green region.
A green region?
A green, not white, not ice. I don't want the ice to melt, but I meant green energy, renewable energy is being used in the Arctic.
So white, visually, green, energy-wise. Final thoughts from both of you, Ambassador Ellertsdóttir?
No, I just want to underline how important it is that we all meet up, and I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to come here to Anchorage, and I will leave with so much more new ideas and thoughts and things that I want to pursue when I come back. And I just, I can't stop underlining the importance of us all coming together and speaking about the Arctic. And you can also feel that the Arctic is so many things. I mean, it's, life in Alaska, even if I find so many similarities to my life in Iceland, it is totally different. There are different challenges. The challenges for the indigenous people are so different from the challenges we have. That is kind of, that is like yesterday we heard about housing issues, health issues, work, the future. Like Anniken was saying, it's so important that young people find work in their villages, in their where they live. So So I think it's just very important that we sit down together and discuss where we can cooperate, where we can help each other, and innovate and make life, livelihood, and the Arctic livable for the future.
Ambassador, final thoughts from you.
I think that we Arctic people are different but alike, and that makes it good to be together, because we're all enough alike to understand each other, but then we have enough differences to be able to learn from each other. And I'm learning a lot every time I'm in the American Arctic, and I encourage those of you who have the chance, go to the European Arctic and see the difference and the similarities.
Ambassador Anniken Krutnes, Ambassador of the Royal Norwegian Embassy to the United States, and Ambassador Bergdís Ellertsdóttir, Ambassador of Iceland to the United States. Thank you so much to both of you. They'll be back here tonight for the dinner discussion when we have somehow an all-female panel of ambassadors and Senator Murkowski on the stage together. So we can see that later. Thank you so much, everyone.